Hi, I'm Tyra Butler, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm here with Patricia Gonzalez, licensed marriage and family therapist. And I'm really eager and excited to chat with her. She's going to be presenting. What's the exact date and time?
We are next Friday. I believe the date on the calendar. Let me double check. We're next Friday. I know we're at 9 a.m. The 28th.
The
So it's
28th.
September the 28th at 9 a.m. from 9 to 11 a.m.
I want to make sure I got that right. Okay, perfect. And that's at the regular place that the IE-CAMFT meetings are. You can get the address and location from the emails that go out and from social media. So
That's correct. Yeah, you can RSVP. I just saw a really cool link that includes the description of the learning points and an RSVP that directly links through Facebook. So if you go to the IE-CAMFT Facebook, they have a nice announcement there that you can RSVP through.
Yes, and if you're a member, it's free, so it's included with your membership. And I believe it's only $10 if you're not a member. So please come and join us, and you're going to get a taste and feel for what she's going to be talking about, and I'm really interested. So let me just introduce her to you. So she's a licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in working with the LGBTQIA people of color. She graduated from the Latinx, am I saying that right?
That's right.
Family specialization in the School of Cultural Psychology at Pacific Oaks College. Her training included positions at the Los Angeles Lesbian and Gay Center, the Orange County Child Abuse Prevention Center, Amanecer.
Amanecer.
There we go. I took 3 years of Spanish, but you can't tell. Community Counseling Center, and currently ongoing with Creative Insights Counseling. And that's your private practice, right?
That's correct. I'm part of a private practice with a couple of offices, one in Pomona, California, and one in Redlands.
Great. And she is Senior Staff Therapist and Director of Outreach and Education of Creative Insights Counseling at both sites. And she has appeared on national television and provides workshops to many types of professionals with regard to working with the LGBTQIA people of color. So this is her niche, her expertise. And she provides clinical consultation to mental health providers across the country and in Canada. And she's also adjunct faculty at the University of Redlands and is currently teaching at Pacific Oaks College.
That's right.
Impressive. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, so why don't you tell us, what can we hope to learn coming to see your talk?
Sure. So one of the first things I'd like to break down is, even just in the introduction, there's already so much information that can be kind of taken out about what we're hoping to have a conversation about. So I'll start with that, the title, the LGBTQIA title. I know you and I were talking briefly before we came on about what does that even mean? So some of the first things that we'll be able to talk about is the language, nomenclature, ways to understand community identities in the world of sexually diverse and gender diverse clients, and we'll talk about what those things are. So let me just start with that, and I'll give you a little snippet of what you're hoping to learn on next Friday. So the acronym is one of the first things. We'll learn a lot about language, a lot about terminology. So the L is lesbian, G is gay, B is bisexual, LGBT transgender, LGBTQ. So Q can go a couple different ways. We've heard it used as queer. We've heard it used as questioning. Those are two ways that you can use the queer represent the Q. LGBTQIA. So, and then sometimes we stop it there. It's truncated depending on what population we're working with. But if you expand it, it does include lots more folks, and that's not even the full expansion of all the particular acronyms that are put into the abbreviation that try to represent the community, because it's such a vast community. It's such a vast community with so many identities. I particularly work with the intersection of those identities of gender and sexual identity with the intersection of things like racial or ethnic identity. So people of color refers to somebody who may be of the history or experience of being African American, maybe Latino American, Mexican. I have clients from all over the world right now. I have some Filipino clients. I definitely have some Native American clients, given given the geographic area that we're serving. So if we think about what we're hoping to have a really in-depth conversation about next week, is kind of what happens when we are, as providers, in a place where we're looking to see either how to better serve clients that are already in our practice, that we're saying, oh, I'm understanding that I have some learning possibilities here, and learn in a way that supports these clients, or more than that, actually hoping to expand knowledge and meet the constant changing environment of what identity is with this, what we call affirmative stance, right? And the affirmative stance is what's really important about what we'll talk about next week. An affirmative stance simply means that we're coming at it from the place of saying, it is my job to say, I believe you. I believe that these identities exist. I believe that they're legitimate. I believe that they come with lots of complicated intersections of a lot of things. But more than that, I am affirming that I will do my work to make sure that you are safe in my practice in every way that I can do that. So that's some of the how nomenclature connects to safety is we can't really address a problem, concern, identity, beautiful situation until we have named it. And sometimes what happens is that we don't even know the name. And that's where we start. Often we start with kind of creating a name so we can have a conversation with clients that we have a shared understanding of what they in fact mean when they say, I'm queer. What they in fact mean when they say, or maybe we have a realm of possibility of understanding of what they might mean when they say, I'm a lesbian.
So it's helping them to put words around who they are and their identity, as well as coming from an approach and a stance of accepting, believing what they're telling you, not trying to challenge it, taking that in and being for them.
Yes, absolutely. So if you think about kind of the humanistic approach or the individual, that view of meeting the client where they're at, it comes from that same view. I believe for affirmative therapy comes from that same view, but very much centered in kind of the dismantling of lots of institutional stuff. And we'll learn about it, lots of institutional stuff that has been done historically in mental health treatment that hasn't treated LGBT folks very kindly. So you can think about things like the DSM, right? The DSM pathologized homosexuality for until the 70s. It was in the DSM as a disorder. So we have to think about that. That's often in the room with the client when they're trying to come and see us. So it's not only us creating a safe space for them to exist, but us saying we know that some of the things that we have been taught or maybe learned a long time ago were things that may have injured you at one point or another. So we are taking the responsibility to say, let me meet you with a place of saying, I will do work to make you safe, as well as I understand that you are the expert in your life. You are the expert in your experience. And so handing folks that situation may have been the first time that somebody has actually affirmed them. Generally speaking, if clients are coming to us around issues of identity, around issues of exploration, it is because there's some kind of conflict.
Right, there's something going on for them.
Right. I mean, you got to imagine if you and I were having a conflict with some part of our identity, that's when we're going to go seek out support. It's not when we're, have our identity integrated and we're having a great old time. So in and of itself, the first intervention is that creating the affirmative space. So that's one of the first kind of interventions we'll learn next week. And how do we formulate that? How do you do that in an accessible way for you and maybe your staff, or maybe ways that are even before a client even gets in your chair? It's things like, what are they seeing on your website? Things like what are in your intake forms? What kind of descriptions are you sending of what kind of facilities are on site for bathroom use? There's all kinds of things that for us, you and I, maybe somebody who doesn't have to think about that kind of constant negation of your safety is such a relief for folks. I can tell you that I have worked with clients when they said, oh my goodness, I was in such relief when I read your forms and there was this space to put gender as opposed to the little boxes to check. So, see the difference? The little boxes create categories where you've got 2, maybe 3 options, right? Male, female, sometimes other, which is really terrible, right?
What does that communicate? Yeah.
Right. What does it communicate even offhand? Like, you already don't
Mhm.
have a space for me already. So what happens
Mhm.
with the subtlest change of, instead of boxes, there's a space
Mhm.
where somebody could write something in.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
that is the kind of shifting that we're trying to make really accessible for folks, so that it is possible to do this work in a way that takes what you already are good at and just kind of tweaks it a bit, challenges you a bit, and it evolves so that we create a space again that, you know, both supports the client and also gives us a new opportunity for different clients, for experiences of growth, for experiences of learning, really, for
Mhm.
experiences of really undoing some of the very difficult historical, you know, institutional things that have been done and continue to be done today in medical establishments and you know, mental health establishments for folks.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. So it's really, you're really going to be teaching us how we can be more receptive, inviting
Mm-hmm.
to people that are struggling with varying aspects of their identity, helping them put words to it and helping them to feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with being able to open up and talk about, you know, who they are, whatever their conflict is going on, and whatever
Right.
their presenting problems are.
Right, right, absolutely right. And one of the great things about work with LGBT community is that sometimes, and I have found this to be true, is that folks who are doing work that may not be particularly about identity, so folks who maybe are doing grief work,
Mhm.
you're gonna come across a gay person that has grief. So
Mhm.
it might not be the central issue, but it might
Right.
be something
Yeah.
that if you allow yourself to kind of expand, you know, those factors of understanding, it may just heighten the way in which you practice your work,
Mhm.
right?
Where you're able to reach that client and help them with their grief or whatever
Right,
the issue is.
right,
Mhm.
right. And so where that prospective client who might be grieving the loss of their partner versus the loss of their wife might say, oh, there's a space for me here too.
Mhm.
You know, and I imagine a really beautiful future in which all the spaces are kind of equal access, if you will, so that if somebody is doing postpartum work, for example, that postpartum work can and will include same gender partnerships. That
Mhm.
postpartum work will have spaces for partnerships that are not where a trans man may be carrying a child,
Mhm.
right? And so these are all things about how to take whatever work you're doing and kind of expand it a bit so that it makes, I kind of call it making space, right? Making space for the rest of the alphabet, because there's so many more letters in the alphabet too that we haven't even discussed. The identity alphabet, we call it, that
Mhm.
long kind of identity thing, where it doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be a huge giant shift from the way that you're doing your work. It can just be a kind of bringing yourself into a new awareness and practicing with that awareness so that prospective folks can see that and hopefully find you as well in a way safer. Because again, I can tell you in my experience, and I'll share with you in the presentation, that some of the difficult things that folks have shared with us in our years of doing this work in consultation are having gone very open-heartedly to a therapist or to a clinic or to a doctor, and then having the very first experience they have either on the phone be off-putting, negative, isolating, shame-inducing, things like if somebody's name has changed, using the wrong name immediately on the phone. If somebody's, for example, if my name, my birth name was given as David, and I correct you and I say, no, my name is Patty, then the continued use of things like sir, the continued use of things like David. So,
Mhm.
and it's not, genuinely, it's not about saying there's no way to do that correctly. It's about saying some of it is about just being aware,
Mhm.
right?
To not probably do harm, right?
Right,
The number one
right. Mandate of our
for
job, right?
us, right?
Right,
Yeah, so to prevent harm to others,
right,
maybe even unknowingly, unwittingly.
right, right. And I
Mhm.
do like to give the benefit of the doubt that I think if if I told you directly, this client needs to be called this name to be safe, to feel like their therapy is going to work for them.
Excuse me.
Sure. To feel like their therapy is going to work for them. to feel like you understand. I don't know that you say, no, I'm not going to do it. Forget that. I don't know that most therapists would do that, but I do think that a great amount of maybe lack of practice, maybe feeling that it's inaccessible, maybe just like not knowing what to do is can be very isolating. And sometimes just the guilt, the confusion, feeling like I need to know everything and be an expert. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be aware and be informed. There are people who are experts so that you don't have to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I'm hearing too, and what you're sharing, that it's so empowering to become informed, because if we're ignorant and there's things that we don't know about, all these subjects we're talking about, then we can potentially do harm.
What I was hearing and what you were saying is an experience that I've had often when consulting with folks, that it's an awareness that we get pushed up against our own lack of knowledge, that then we project that onto a client as I don't like you, I don't want you, I don't understand you. And it's really not that I don't want to, it's not that I couldn't, it's that genuinely I just haven't had access to the information. So that Friday is really about creating some access, access to this information. So you have access to the information, clients will have an increased access to care, because there is limitless amount of clients to help. And what ends up happening is that the experience of most clients that I've worked with is that by the time they've come to us, they've been to about 5, 6, 7 other therapists who said after 1 or 2 sessions, oh, you know what, I can't help you with that. And it was, I think, probably the best thing that therapist could have done, because those arrows pointed the client to us, but the client didn't hear it as, I don't know it. Therapist isn't saying, I don't know it, this is my shortcoming. They heard it as, that's weird. That's something that is so unique and so out of the ordinary and so strange. And that's the ones that actually get referred. There are people who do it and stay doing the work and have no, information available to them, and are doing the best they can with what they have. And then unknowingly, to your point, do some harm. And that's what we want to do. We don't need to create a situation in which, because of the lack of information, that's what the harm is, what's happening. Because here we are, there's people available, and there's going to be a talk, and it's $10, and it's free for most folks. So what the resource is there is your time, and so as long as we're willing to offer, and we, including me, offer ourselves up to spend time, maybe a little bit of money, to expand our understanding, I genuinely think that it is accessible, it is applicable, it is something that can be integrated into your current practice, and will create a world of difference for clients that are likely right now today looking at your website and saying, oh, I don't see myself there, or oh, I went to your Psychology Today profile and I don't see myself there. All of these things that are kind of the little windows into our practice. We're trying to make that window a little wider, and that's the hope, right, with the training.
Yeah, I'm excited, because I'm sure that I can even benefit from being able to expand how I communicate myself, because I've worked with clients that various identities, and I think that I consider myself a very accepting, non-judgmental therapist. Yet I probably don't communicate that in my materials very well. And so I'm, really curious about, what you can put in a website and in your Psychology Today profile. And even I didn't ever consider, even in an informed consent, what you were talking about, just all those details that.
Right. And because what happens is that I think most folks are like you, to be honest. I think most folks are like you in the sense that it's not that you're sitting thinking, I don't know if I'm going to ever want to work with a lesbian person. I don't have any thought that that's what's happening. But what ends up happening is that the assumption is, I'm accepting. Doesn't it come across? Can't you see how accepting I am? Which is absolutely because you feel it. Is that before somebody sees you and sits in your chair and even, spends that first moment with you, there's all of these possible kind of interventions that can be done. And genuinely, they are interventions. They're therapeutic in nature because they build relationship. And if you are a relational therapist like I am, it builds a relationship. So the website builds a relationship.
Yeah, that's so true.
Your forms build a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The language in your Psychology Today profile builds a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you hang in your office builds a relationship. All kinds of things. And again, it takes just the slightest little tweak so that you can go. I call this, and this is a phrase you'll hear me say a lot, it's go from thinking about it to being about it, right? I think about acceptance, and I think about affirmativeness, and I think about being very open, but how do I be about it? How do I translate that into action, you know?
Kind of embody that.
Right, exactly. And how do you translate it to folks who have had a hard time finding it? And maybe, again, and still make it accessible so that the clients that you might still be working with now can still see themselves reflected as well. Right? Because not everybody's going to be a specialist. I get it. My 99% of my practice is LGBTQIA plus people of color. And so my practice is going to be focused on that. But I have colleagues that do I have somebody that does parenting work that's an amazing colleague of mine. And the way that she has included folks is that instead of having only opposite gender parents on her website, she has a couple of same gender parenting partnerships on her website, or maybe single parent persons on her website. And you would be amazed at the difference between what somebody is going to come to that website and have as an experience if every couple on the website is a man and a woman. You know, imagine if you are for the first time seeking out parenting support and your family hasn't been very approving of your partnership, and you need some help raising your kid, because we all need our help raising our kid. Where are you going to go? How are you going to know it's okay for you there?
Yeah, that's a really important point. That it starts right there, that first contact.
Right. Before your client is even in your office. And that's one of the things I think some folks often tell me, you know, it's in the room, it's how we do therapy. That is definitely part of it. But it can begin before that, and it can continue into the room, and we'll talk about how to continue it into the room and the therapeutic kind of interventions that go along with working in practice, which is something I'm really excited about, because there's so much knowledge, right? It's, you already have skills. It's just taking that and kind of saying, how do I incorporate that with this expansion view that Patty is offering me, so that then again, I can use the best of my skills and offer that to a whole different set of clients that maybe I didn't even know I could offer it to. You know, so it also expands the possibility for business. I can tell you, there's a lot of work to be had.
Yeah, great need.
I have people coming from Barstow to see me in Pomona. That is an hour drive. There's nobody doing the work that we do in that area. And so again, all of us in the Inland Empire, we have the possibility to lessen the disparity of services out here for LGBT folks. I can tell you that it is called a desert of services. So all of the folks that I've worked with that are kind of more in LA, which is kind of the center of services in this Southern California area for LA and San Diego for LGBT folks, they call IE the desert. Not just because it actually is a desert, but because services related to and having some kind of competence in and having some kind of affirmative, network support thing is very, very, very low. So if we can kind of water the desert a little bit, that's the hope, right, for Friday, that we expand some of those oases, and that it isn't just 2 or 3 providers, that it can be kind of the satellite of providers, where then that you can refer to each other. You can say, oh, I don't do that part of work, but I really know someone who does parenting and has an LGBT perspective. Oh, I know somebody who does morning work. Oh, I know somebody who does, divorce proceedings. I know somebody who does whatever, whatever work you do, and also has gone through this training with Patty and is doing some consultation and is really interested in expanding and creating an environment in which now there's more service providers. Now it's not a desert.
I love that. Yeah. It's really, the training is really to help us as therapists to help more people in the community.
Right.
In very significant ways where there's such a need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about the training is that you'll leave that day with things, at least 5 things you'll be able to do that same day. That same
Awesome.
day, you'll be able to do at least 5 things from our training that will expand your work, that will, hopefully expand your potential clientele, that will communicate what level of kind of comfort you have working in the community. And I call the community being LGBT community.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it'll also start a conversation with other folks, because mind you, anybody else who's going to be there is also like-minded and interested, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a networking even of itself, saying, oh, let me find some like-minded people who might help me down this path.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it takes all of us. It genuinely does.
Mm. Yeah, well, I'm so excited, and I hope you guys come and join us. Make sure that you register and RSVP, and don't miss out on this exciting presentation that's going to be very impactful, and I can tell extremely informative.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you all next Friday. And again, go to the Facebook page and go register there, and make sure you get your seat, reserved, so we can see you next week. And come and see me. Come and say, hi, Patty. I saw you online, and I'll be really excited to say, oh yeah, how did my hair look?
and those nails.
Did you see?
You got to see these nails in person.
We can talk about them. There's a lot of magic here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys for listening.